Hi guys, it's Matchday 3. That only means one thing. It's time to wildcard. I've activated the wildcard and I'm going to share with you my wildcard team ahead of the new deadline. I'll talk you through each and every pick, each and every position. I'll also cover some picks that I'm still considering but can't yet squeeze into my team. So without any further wait, let's get straight into it. So in between the sticks, I've gone for Donnarumma and Fabio. There are so many good goalkeeper options this week. So many teams with good clean sheet odds. And these two are two of them. I really think at this point in the competition, or at least this week, you really don't need budget, especially if you're wildcarding for 1 week only. For that reason, I think going a little bit more pricier into the mid-price, into the higher end kind of price bracket of goalkeepers is absolutely fine. Now, he doesn't have scouting bonus, but Donnarumma definitely has good clean sheet odds this week against Seattle Sounders. Sounders are look dead set to leave the competition. They haven't been fantastic. They've scored a couple of goals, but I do think PSG are probably going to keep a clean sheet this week. They kept one against Atletico. They've kept a couple in the Champions League latter stages in which they won eventually. So I do think they're a good side, a good defensive side for clean sheets. If Donnarumma fails to do that, then they've got Fabio. Now, Fabio plays for Fluminense. Fluminense actually kept the clean sheet against Dortmund, which surprised me slightly. I did think we'd see goals at both ends. But it's very good price as well. Fabio, I think, is around 4.6 million for those that do need the money. I personally don't. So for me, Fabio is just another excellent option. I really do like both of these goalkeepers. I do like the thought of doubling up on the PSG defence, but I don't really like anyone outside of Hakimi, which is why I think Donnarumma is an excellent option. I also don't really like many of the Fluminense defenders, which is why I've gone for Fabio. So for me, they're my goalkeepers so far. So you'll notice that I've gone for Hakimi. I did mention Hakimi early in the goalkeeper section. I do really fancy the PSG double this week, to be honest. I do like the thought of going for PSG double up against Seattle. Hakimi has managed 20 attacking returns this season already, or in the season just gone. I do think he is one of, if not the most attacking defender in the world, maybe bar Dumfries. I just think he has so much potential going into any given game. He's been super advanced as well so far. I know he's only picked up one clean sheet, but I do think he's definitely due, especially a defender as attacking as him. I've also gone for Mora. Now, Porto assets haven't been great at all, have they? They have been frustrating. They've been very much let downs. But Mora did keep a clean sheet in the first round. You've got to take into consideration who Porto are actually playing this week. Yes, Porto have been, ropey to say the least. But they do face Al-Ahly this week, and Al-Ahly have failed to score in both of their first matches. So I do think a team that are blunt in front of goal are worth backing in terms of the opposition defence. And that is Mora. Now, Mora, we all know how attacking Mora can be, don't we, from our scouting notes before the competition started. Over double digits for goals and assists. So I do think he is very attacking. He actually ended the season with goals and assists in his the kind of final few matches, which made me think that he went into the competition in good attacking form. So for me, yes, he is nice and cheap. Again, budget probably irrelevant, but I do think he is still a very good option. I think the Porto picks are probably going to go under the radar this week based on how they've performed so far. I don't think they should. I've also gone for Blanco. Now, Boca Juniors do look dead set to keep a clean sheet, don't they, against Auckland City, who have lost an aggregate of 16-0 against Bayern and Benfica. I do think the clean sheet is definitely coming in this week. Blanco has under 5% ownership, so has scouting bonus. He also has a share of set pieces as well. He is their standout option offensively, so I do think Blanco is probably the pick to go for in the Boca Juniors defence. Now, two attacking options on the bench, Trent and also Lodi. Both players have attacking routes to points. They've both proved it in the past. Lodi got 10 attacking returns last season. Trent is already on set pieces for Real Madrid. I've got the money to go for Trent. I didn't really see too many standout options in defence. For that reason, I've kind of backed Trent again. The Real Madrid fixtures are really good. He plays Salzburg this week, who were pretty horrific in the Champions League last season. I also really like Lodi against Pachuca. I do think he's a nice punt as well. So that is my defence as it stands. Yes, it could change, but I'm quite happy with it for now. So in midfield, you can see that some of my Chelsea bias has crept in there with the Chelsea double up. I do really like Chelsea this week. I do think against ES Tunis that we should score a couple of goals. ES Tunis have been ropey defensively, haven't they? They've not really been convincing at all, although I do like Belali, star player. Those who played AFCON Fantasy will recognise that name, but those who don't, he's a very good player. He could be a risk at the Chelsea defence, at the clean sheet, but as far as the defence goes, it's not great. So I do think, doubling up on the Chelsea midfield or the Chelsea attack in general. I also like Delap as an option as well, and we'll get into that further on into the video. But again, for now, I've gone for Palmer and Neto. There's not loads of convincing midfield options this week, so I do think two Chelsea midfielders who will probably definitely start, could be fantastic options. Palmer has not been great. In fact, he's been really frustrating, hasn't he, for the first two rounds, But we have to remember that, 200 plus points in FPL for back-to-back seasons now kind of reflects how good he actually has been. He's also really explosive as well, so kind of don't be surprised if he manages a massive, massive haul. I think you'll kick yourself if you don't have any manages one of his classic Palmer hauls. So for me, Palmer makes the cut. Again, he's on pans as well, and I do think ES Tunis are definitely ropey. The best of the bunch is obviously Neto, goals in his first two matches. I do think he is the standout. A lot of people will go there, 6.5 million. Again, I don't really want to go without Neto this week. So this is why I've currently got the Chelsea double up, because owning both, it just feels right this week. I don't know why. It could be a gut feeling. It could be Chelsea biased. I don't think a lot of people are even going to have one Chelsea midfielder this week, let alone two. So I do think if successful and Chelsea do well and score goals, then it could really help propel me in terms of rank. I've also got Kvaratskhelia, who's a lock for me. PSG have to get a result this week. Kvaratskhelia is their best option. Then Bailey has come back from injury, so might not play much. Barcola and Doué haven't convinced at all. Kvaratskhelia was excellent in the last stages of the Champions League, as I've mentioned on a previous video. He also managed 2 assists in the opening round. He's just majestic. I do think he is their most talented player. I do think that he is a star. So I do think he has the ability to change any game. He didn't do that against Botafogo, but I am so convinced by Kvaratskhelia this week. I also really like Zanon. Now, Boca Juniors are playing Auckland City, who've conceded 16 goals so far. You have to be targeting Auckland City in terms of Boca Juniors offensive assets, and one of them is Zanon. He takes set pieces. I spoke to a Boca Juniors fan. He is their standout midfielder option. He's their most creative option, so I do think he's another lock for me. He's a player that I don't think will leave my draft, and he will stay here for good. Now, I also have Al-Dawsari. Al Hilal really impressed me in the first round against Real Madrid. I actually thought Al Hilal should have won that game, bar Real Madrid's penalty miss. Valverde missed the penalty, which could have seen Los Blancos go 2-1 up. But I do think, Al Hilal were unlucky not to win that. Al-Dawsari is their standout attacker. He is their talisman. 30 attacking returns in Saudi Pro League last season. He always seems to be amongst the goals. Yes, he wasn't amongst the goal against Real Madrid, but I do think against Pachuca this week, Pachuca are a team to target in my opinion. I do think Al Hilal could score 2 or 3 goals this week, so I do think that Al-Dawsari is an excellent option. Yes, he isn't eligible for scouting bonus, but he is below 10% owned, so if he does haul, then it could really, really rocket you up the ranks of mini leagues. So as it stands, that's my midfield. I do think things could change. This is definitely not set. I do have question marks around Palmer, potentially Al-Dawsari, but I really, really like this midfield so far. So heading into my front line, you'll be able to see 4.2 million Agahowa. Porto haven't been great. They've obviously been very frustrating, haven't they? I think we can all agree on that. But Porto have a great fixture against Al-Ahly this week. Al-Ahly have been quite ropey, obviously. They drew Inter Miami 0-0 in the first round, but then were dismantled by Palmeiras in the second round, although started well, and then there was a thunderstorm. Palmeiras did start to turn the screw. So I expect Al-Ahly to concede big chances this week, and I expect Agahowa to be kind of putting them away. He is on pens as well. We saw that he scored a penalty in the last round. So I really like Agahowa this week. You know, he's spearheading a decent Porto side, a usually decent Porto side, up against Al-Ali. I expect them to score goals this week. I expect Porto assets to generally do well. So for that reason, Agahowa makes the cut. I don't think it matters what price he was or he is, Agahowa. I think you could price him at 8-9 million, and I'd probably still really like him this week. I kind of have £6 million budget left in the bank, so I don't really need money. I could upgrade him to like a premium, but I just kind of don't need to. I've also gone for Merentiel. Now, Merentiel leads the Boca Juniors attack going into a game against semi-professional Auckland. We can expect a lot of goals for them, so Merentiel is probably essential. Recent rumours surrounding Merentiel suggest he's injured, but he's not, according to Boca Junior fans. He is just tired, a bit of fatigue. He was taken off in the last match due to precaution. He's also most likely to take pens. So for me, he is their best attacker, their star man, and an absolute essential. Similar to Guirassy, actually. Dortmund scored quite a few goals against Sundowns in the last round, and it was an epic match. It was 4-3. I know they didn't score against Fluminense, but this is a totally different opposition, a much weaker opposition. You know, a team that Sundowns actually beat 1-0. So for me, Ulsan are a team to target. I do think Guirassy is an excellent striker. 30 plus attacking returns in Europe last season. Amazing in the Champions League. Joint top scorer in the Champions League, in fact, with Rafinha. So for me, he is an absolute, probably an essential amongst all. I do think he's better than every single premium in the game this week. He arguably should have scored 2 or 3 goals in the last round. He missed a couple of big chances. And if he gets that again, you know, we could see him haul. His most recent hat-trick was against Barcelona in the last stage of the Champions League. And that is where he had a lot of big chances as well. So I do think, you know, some games he does miss big chances, but others, you know, he takes every single one of them. And you want to own him in the one that he takes, you know, takes every single one of them, because it's a massive haul. So for me, that's my front three as it stands. Yes, there are quite a lot of other striker, good striker options that I could, you know, potentially swap to. Maybe Agahowa could leave, but for me, Guirassy and Merentiel an absolute locks. Obviously, you know, we will kind of monitor news around Merentiel to make sure he is playing. But for now, for me, he's a lock alongside Guirassy. Now, there are quite a lot of assets that I'm considering this week ahead of my wildcard, ahead of Matchday 3. In terms of goalkeepers, I'm also considering Sanchez and Kobel. Sanchez, I do think, could keep a clean sheet against ES Tunis. Kobel the same against Ulsan. Both have shown they can keep clean sheets. Obviously, Chelsea kept one against LAFC. Dortmund kept one against a stronger Fluminense side. So I do think Dortmund's Kobel is a great option. In defence, I do like Mendes. I was originally going to double up, actually, on the PSG fullbacks in Mendes and Hakimi, but decided to go with Donnarumma instead of Mendes. That might still change. You know, I do really like Mendes. He was great in terms of offensive threat at the last stage of the Champions League last season. So I do think he's still a great option. I also really like Cancelo. As you know, I've already got Lodi, who's probably more attacking, at least more successful in terms of attacking threat last campaign than Cancelo. But Cancelo, we all know what he's capable of, especially from his time at Manchester City. He loves a shot from outside the box. No one would be really surprised if he scored against Pachuca. You know, I do think he's another great option, along with Anton, actually, who's still eligible for scouting bonus. Dortmund centre-back. He is the cheapest and most reliable route into the Dortmund defence, it seems. You know, he's around 4.7 million. He's a centre-back. He plays Ulsan in the final round. So I do think he's a very, very nice option too. In midfield, I am very, very tempted by Arias. You know, he recently scored and assisted for Fluminense in Matchday 2, so it's very hard to kind of resist him at the moment. He does play Sundowns as well, who recently conceded 4 goals to Dortmund. So right at the top of my list in terms of replacing any of my lineup is Arias. I do think he's a fine option, a very good pick for this week. Also considering Mora, Porto assets have been frustrating, haven't they? You know, in general, we've mentioned that a couple of times, but I do still think that Mora could have potential against Al-Ali. You know, nice and cheap. He's impressed when he has played. So yeah, I do think he's another player who's got potential, along with Madueke. Actually, Chelsea, you know, didn't start him in match day 2, which means I think he is going to start this week. Madueke is one of Chelsea's most, integral attackers. He proved that last season. He started most matches for Chelsea in the Premier League. Yes, he's been frustrating fans. Yes, he's been frustrating me. I do think he's definitely an outside differential for this week. I do think, if he went off, if he called, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Up front, the Jackson red card in match day 2 means that Liam Delap is very, very likely to lead the Chelsea attack in the game against ES Tunis. Delap, he has looked lively. He bagged an assist in the first round. He didn't do much in the second round, but I do think he's an excellent pick this week. Nice and cheap. You could even back him over the Chelsea midfielders. Mitrovic, also penalty taker for Al Hilal. Great option against Pachuca. Pachuca have proven defensively weak so far in the competition. I do think Hilal will score a couple of goals, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Mitrovic score. I'm also still considering Vinny Jr. Salzburg again, they conceded the joint most goals in the Champions League last season. So Vinicius without Mbappe should be on pens. Valverde missed a pen the other day. So Vinicius isn't fantastically consistent in general, but in these type of competitions, or at least, the big games and when it matters, he does turn up. So against Salzburg again, I say this about all of these players, but I won't be surprised if you hold. I think Vinicius Jr. is still a very good option, and it's still one that I am seriously considering. If I had to rank these strikers, I would probably put Vinny top. I'm definitely still considering Vinny. So they're the options that I am considering. A lot of these could come into my team. I think the standouts for me on this list, Arias at top in midfield, could well, replace Palmer or Al-Dawsari. The same with Vinicius Jr. He could potentially replace Agahowa or Merentiel if injured. So yeah, there's still an outside chance of a lot of these players making my squad for match day 3. Hey guys, that was my Club World Cup Fantasy Match Day 3 wildcard team selection. If you enjoyed that video, please remember to like and subscribe, especially subscribe. I really appreciate all the support I've had over the past few weeks since starting the channel, and I'm hoping you stick with me on this journey. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.